Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
For the first time in, a month and a half, Penn State back in the win column, getting a 28-10 win on the road against Michigan State. Not just their first win since week 3, their first Power 4 win of the year, and it came at a time when they really needed it. Again, Penn State defeating Michigan State 28-10. Welcome in to State of State. I am Jarrett Bailey sitting in for Tom Hannafin. That is former Penn State wide receiver Deon Butler. Not much of a passing game today for Penn State, Deon, but they get the job done regardless and get a big win and stay bowl eligible.
Right. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? One of the big things, though, right? We had a chunk play. If you get on here, you continue to hear me talking about chunk plays. We pushed the ball down the field a little bit early, but we got the chunk play, right? And that gave us it was about a 75-yard or so touchdown, something like that, right? So that at least kept us in the game, gave us that explosive play without having a consistent pass game. But the one thing I do think that was good from today, which I think we continue to see, is that he protects the ball. And when I say we're talking about Grunkemeyer, right? He protects the ball, right? We would love to have more passing yards, but first and foremost, do not beat yourself. Do not turn the ball over. And I think that's the continuous growth you see from him. And the one consistent thing since he's been starting is that he's, for the most part, protected the ball and has not had a ton of just kind of like ill mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Grunkemeyer on the day, they didn't throw it a whole lot. 8 of 13, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns, 75 of that on the long pass to Devontae Ross, which kind of blew everything open for Penn State. They were trailing. Katron Allen gets the touchdown. They needed a spark to kind of set the tone for the rest of the evening, and that did it. Devontae Ross on the day, he had 2 touchdowns on 2 catches. The other one, that 4-yard little touch pass that kind of put the game away. But the big story offensively was Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, and the ground game combined. Both guys ran it for 40 attempts, over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day for Katron Allen. Each of those guys continue to climb up the ranks on the all-time Penn State rushing yards leaderboard as well. And I think Brad Nessler made a note of it during the broadcast, how Andy Kotelnicki, offensive coordinator, had said, if we just ran the ball a little bit more early, maybe we wouldn't have been in such a funk. We might have won a few more games. Getting back to, relying on Katron Allen, Nick Singleton felt like a big objective today.
I mean, I think we've all said that throughout the year. I think going into the year, we know that, right? We've got these 2 great running backs coming back, O-line strong. So the running game was going to be our identity. Unfortunately, it's taken a while to get clicking, but this offense goes as well as that running game goes, right? And this is kind of, I think, what we kind of expected to see throughout the year, where maybe we get some pass plays, some chunk plays, but we just wear teams down. And I think that's what we did, right? You start to see the third and that fourth quarter. I mean, we started getting those 6-yard runs, 7-yard runs, then turned into 18-yard runs, right? So I think that's what we expected to see all year, as far as understanding our O-line could wear a team down throughout a game. And it's good to see, obviously the level of competition changed a little bit today, but that's what we were looking for, I think, throughout the whole season. But the biggest part is, look, you line up and play against who you play against. So it was good to see those guys do that today.
Yeah. And, relating it back to the beginning of the year, do you think that I don't want to say forced, but, when you have a quarterback like Drew Aller, on your team, that, what he's capable of, but do you think that they did get a little bit too far away from it, put a little bit too much on Drew's plate early on, and that could have caused a little bit of dysfunction offensively?
I mean, I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, I think there was a multitude of things, right? I think it's hard to point at one thing, right? So to your point, right, we made it a point, I think, to get Drew in the passing game going. But then the offensive line also wasn't opening holes as quickly as we were looking for early, even when we were playing inferior opponents. So it was just kind of one of those things. I think they all kind of just built on top of each other. So then you started dropping back more, and then we weren't getting those type of plays, and then we weren't having a running game. Then we weren't even on the field long enough to be able to work Singleton in with Katron, and it was just like, it was just so many compounding things. It's just one of those things now, I think, right? This is what we were looking for earlier as Penn State fans. Glad it's showing up now, right? Would have hoped for it earlier, but this is what we were looking for, getting those running backs involved, letting that help the passing game. and then just playing solid defense like we did today. And I mean, they started getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, 5 sacks on the day for Penn State, 8 tackles for loss. Deon Sutton was really getting after it. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, blocked a punt. Really just an overall showcase day for Deon Sutton. That's a guy who, come Sundays, sooner rather than later, he's going to be a big name for somebody. Certainly the defensive player of the game for Penn State, and like I said, a big showcase day for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is another thing, one of those where we were hoping to see this more consistently early, but you see it now. Like you see the type of player that he can be, where he can take over games like this and be a disruptor. Obviously, even the special teams is like a big play, right? And that's been multiple block punts at this point in time where he's found a niche right in there in the center and created a mismatch on guys off the line trying to block him with a free running start. Yeah, good luck. So it's just like, one of those situations where you see the talent that he has. And I'm glad once again that we're getting after it now. It just seems like it took this defense a while to kind of find themselves and start getting after the quarterback. But, happy it's happening today. Hopefully they can build on this momentum, continue to, play well throughout and get to a bowl game.
Yeah, other notable performances on the day. Zion Tracy had a sack and a tackle for loss. King Mack coming down from the secondary, getting half a sack, a tackle for loss. Amari Campbell, half a sack, half a tackle for loss. Just a ton of guys being very versatile on the day. Only 10 points for Michigan State. Let's see what was their total offensive number real quick in terms of total yardage. I'll get that pulled up. But passing wise, only 128 yards on the day for Michigan State. Could not get anything going. They brought constant pressure. Their quarterback, man, especially the last drive, he's got one shoulder taped up, the other one like hanging because he was getting hit so much. You almost felt bad for the guy. Credit to him for gutting it out. He had taken a hit on the run. And I think it was Nestler in the booth was like, yeah, I would expect a handoff here. Nope, he threw it again. And credit to him for that. But Penn State really aggressive defensively, and I think that was something notable where they brought a ton of pressure. It was consistently working, and it limited what Michigan State could do offensively.
Yeah, I think he was asking for a handoff too at this point in time in the game. But yeah, no, gutsy kid, and hats off to him. But another time where, right, this defense seems to be finding a groove, just like we just talked about offensively with the running backs and getting them involved. And it seems like now the defense is starting to be able to generate pressure, get after the quarterback, not have the secondary, cover as long. And then honestly, right, the secondary is getting into it too. We're starting to get, and I think that's what people were thinking with this Jim Knowles defense, right? Pressure is going to come from everywhere. It's going to be unique. It's going to be all of these different looks, and people are just going to be getting home meaning getting to the quarterback, right? So it's just one of those things where now it's starting to click, and it looks good. This is a team that looks really good. So hopefully, once again, you continue to build on this, but those guys are getting home on defense, and I like what I saw today.
Yeah, 229 total yards for Michigan State to 367 total yards for Penn State. 240 yards on the ground for the Nittany Lions. Third down, a problem, though. Only 2 of 10 on the day offensively. That's something if we're, looking at, the cons of today going forward these last 2 games, going to need to be a little bit more efficient on third down if you want to be able to count on winning these last 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to be able to sustain drives, and third downs are always key. That's one of those big statistics that you're always talking about, whether it's defensively or offensively, that someone has to either continue a drive or have to get off the field if it's defense. And, I think that'll be one of the things as Grunkemeyer continues to grow. I know one of the things, right, if I had to nitpick was the timing in his head, right? That clock. You have that internal clock as a quarterback. You can't hold the ball this long. And then also sacks. Sacks get you in third and long situations, which then turn around and create very, low percentage third down plays. And then, so it's just like one of those things, right? I think those are things that you can build on and work towards, say, let's stay on track. Let's stay on schedule. Let's get in third and shorts, third and manageables. And then we can hopefully continue to rise that number of percentage of third down conversions.
If you're Devontae Ross, Trevor Pena, working with a backup quarterback, you've been doing it now for a month, especially on these third down situations. What's something that you would be saying to him in terms of just like, hey, third and medium, third, look here, do these certain things? Is there something that receivers can do a little to help out the quarterback a little bit in that situation?
Honestly, I think it's just helping build trust in him. What you don't want to do, I think, is kind of tell him too much of what to do. I don't want him thinking
Sure.
too much as like, hey, I said this, I said that. I think so as a wideout, right? Hey, trust what we do in practice and talk about it in practice on game day. Like, hey, just like we practice, here's what we see. If I'm going in motion and you see man, here's the man beater, right? Here's what you should be looking for. And then my job as a wideout is to, make a clean read for him, get open. And then if you do get into those situations where he's holding the ball for a little bit and he's scrambling, like let's really work to get open. But I think the biggest thing, just going back to your question, is really just building trust in him and saying, hey, what we practice all week, trust what you see, and then let us get, clean reads for you, get open and do the things that we need to do for you.
Yeah, they showed it on the broadcast too, where earlier in the game before the long Devontae Ross touchdown, he had him beat on that exact same play. He decided to take the dig route. It still got big yardage, and that was that's fine. They very much made a point to come back to it this time around. Obviously, Devontae Ross open again, and he hits him for the long touchdown. That's what you want to see in a quarterback like Grunkmeyer, who wasn't the expected guy coming in. But when you can make those recognitions throughout the course of a game and say, all right, if we do it again, make sure you look there. And lo and behold, he did, and it resulted in a big chunk play, something that they've been really missing, not just since Drew went down, but even before in the first 3 games of the season. It felt like the offense was missing that big spark. So that was good to see. When looking at the receiving game, it's only 3 guys caught passes today for Penn State. That was Devontae Ross, both of those being touchdowns. Trevor Pena caught 4 passes for 38 yards, and then Katron Allen had 2 catches for 10 yards. I think Nick Singleton's kind of become almost like the forgotten piece of the offense. 15 carries, 56 yards. If we were to make any sort of comparison, to a running back duo, it feels like he's kind of the smash while Katron Allen's the dash, although both of them have, power components to them. But it feels like he's kind of the, I don't know, the Liddell White to Katron's Chris Johnson, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's a tough job to get both of them involved, right? He's just not, and I think it's one of those things too, because we're used to seeing flashy plays from him. We're used to seeing, if he's got 9 carries, he's probably got like 80 some yards because he's
Yeah.
broke off a couple 20-yard runs in there. So what you're used to seeing and expecting, we haven't really got this year. Another thing I think, talking about kind of a forgotten piece of the offense, we just talked about how many people had catches. We have a whole tight end room, right? That is highly
Right.
regarded, especially within Pennsylvania. And I think nationally, people think that tight end room is very well put
I mean,
together.
Luke
And
Reynolds coming into this year. I mean, we talk obviously Tyler Warren leaving, but like Luke Reynolds, even last year, like, all right, like that's going to be a really good replacement for Tyler Warren coming in 2025. And for whatever reason, not necessarily his fault. There's been a lot of factors this year, but we haven't seen that big pop thus far.
right. And I think that's another forgotten piece of the offense, right? When we're talking about getting guys involved and things like that, like we still have a room full of guys right there, even Dinkins, where
Yeah.
we should be able to get some good plays from them, right? And whether that's big shot plays, it doesn't have to be, but working over the middle and things like that. And then kind of circling back to what you said earlier, it's funny because I saw the miss. They highlighted it on the deep post that could have happened earlier. And, honestly, in big games, I was like, okay, this is something where like you watch film and maybe the next week or week after you can come back to that, right? We were fortunate enough to be able to come right back to it in the same game. But
Yeah.
against an elite defense, they're also going to see that. And they're not going to let you circle back in another quarter and see that, right? So we were able
Yeah.
to get away with it today. But I think that's one of those things in the future for him. That's that film study. And that's what you want to start to see is like, yes, it was a completion, but now to become elite, when someone slips up like that, you make them pay. You don't make them pay with a 20-yard play. You make them pay with a touchdown.
Yeah. Next on the docket for Penn State is Nebraska. So they're facing a good quarterback, good offense. Obviously, Matt Rule, who was a popular name in this head coaching search, staying put there. A much better offense than that of Michigan State. Defense is going to need to be on their P's and Q's and doing what we've seen. Specifically what we saw today, but even against Indiana, for the most part, kept a lid on the Indiana offense, limited the explosives, certainly did that against Michigan State. Game in Happy Valley, so they have that to their advantage. Is there anything that you are expecting to see from Nebraska against the Penn State defense, or something to expect from the Nebraska defense that Penn State's offense is going to face?
Well, I think they're going to try to establish the ground game because I think what you don't want to do is you're starting to see now, and I think we're building on defense, is if you're going to get in those third and long situations, that defense is really starting to hit its groove with these exotic blitzes and how they're going to get to you. And as you said earlier, with Denai Sutton, like he's getting home, even if it's not blitz. So I think guys are really going to try to establish run games and stay in manageable third down situations so they don't have to drop back and put a lot of pressure on their QB, and especially at home at Penn State, right? Because that crowd
Right.
gets into it, that changes the whole landscape of the game. But I expect to see, honestly, that defense continue to grow, continue to be consistent, keep the lid on, and start really getting home.
State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today.
Remember, Dylan Raiola out for the year, so it's going to be TJ Lateef in for the Cornhuskers. But he played well against UCLA. He's got 4 touchdown passes on the year. So, while it's not going to be Raiola under center for Nebraska, still not a team that you can take lightly. A 7-3 football team coming into Happy Valley, not going to be an easy task. And then, again, Penn State, if they want to remain bowl eligible, they need these last 2 games. We'll see what bowl it ends up being should they win these last 2 games. Terry Smith, a guy who has done a really good job with this unit, throughout the last month or so since he's been in charge. If there is a chance for them to win these last 2 games, I do think that they've taken the right steps over the last month to be able to get there. So in terms of the coaching search as we continue, just your thoughts on what Terry Smith did today against Michigan State.
Well, I mean, with him, I think what you've seen is a guy that's taken a team mid-turmoil, right, and in the middle of a crazy time, and really week in and week out. Never was the toughness question. I think they've played tough ever since, but they've continued to get better. I think that's one of the things that we look at is, okay, how are the kids responding to the coaching? Are the coaches making adjustments as we go, right? And we talk about the offense and starting to push the ball down the field. Maybe we don't have a ton of yards passing, but we had a chunk play, right? We've been missing chunk plays. It gives us a little difference. We hadn't had really Katron and Nick at the same time going, right? We're getting that going. So and that offensive line is starting to really wear people down. So I think you're really starting to see week in and week out, like coaching adjustments, learning on the fly, but being better with a very short runway and a very short sample size. But with that sample size, he's done a lot as far as being able to, now the defense is playing different. They look different. Obviously, it was a kind of a letdown on one series at Indiana, but that doesn't take away the all before that. This is a team that averaged so many points and held them down pretty good. So, I mean, I just think the coaching adjustments for him, just from a guy to show, here's what I can do on such a short runway. Like if I have a full season, be able to recruit my guys, talk to my guys. I think, I think he could do a really good job.
On the Big Ten front, this is now the 4th straight year that Michigan State's had a losing season, which, back when you were playing, I mean, Michigan State was one of those programs in the Big Ten where it's like one of those ones that you circled. You can count on them being ranked pretty consistently, and just a dry spell for them. For a program in turmoil like that, we saw it a little bit with Penn State, but they consistently had winning seasons even after everything that took place with, Bill O'Brien coming to take over as head coach, the beginning of the Franklin era. Even when they weren't, in the national championship conversation, they were still consistently winning games. For a program like that to take such a big nosedive, from just a former player perspective, what's that like to see Michigan State just in the state that they're in?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, obviously programs go through different transitions and things like that, but that's tough because to your point, they were always just one of those hard nosed, whether they were just like a 4-loss team, a 3-loss team, but they were always dangerous, right? And they were always going to be sound football. They were going to give you a good game, but to see them where they're at now, hopefully they right the ship. They figure out, from a program standpoint, what direction they want to go into. and things like that, because it only uplifts the rest of the conference, right? When the teams are strong and that football culture is there. So,
Yeah.
it's been a long dry spell, right? I remember when I was in school, right? Michigan had a small dry spell, right, for a
Right.
couple years, right, with like Rich Rod and like where they just weren't Michigan, right, before they came back. So, hopefully, however, Michigan felt and got that ship righted, Michigan State kind of figures out their avenue in doing that and can get back to being a consistent football team. Because, like I said, this makes for good football, and they're a school that people think of, and they think of football and good football.
Yeah. I think, what was it? 2017, Penn State went on the road late in the season against Michigan State. I want to say that was a weather delay game. It was a downpour of some sort, and Michigan State upset Penn State in that season. So always a team that like you can never just pencil in a W against. But yeah, certainly a dry spell for this team. In terms of just other notable performances that we could highlight, I think that you brought it up a little bit earlier, but the secondary and the way that they've elevated since all the changes were made, that is one of the things looking forward to next week against Nebraska is certainly going to be a strength for them. We've seen King Mag, Zion Tracy, guys like that who have really stepped up over the last month or so. I think that's going to be very big against a Nebraska team that, like I said, even with a backup quarterback can still sling the ball all over the yard. And you're going to need cornerbacks who aren't going to get beat, can keep coverage for 3, 4, 5 seconds if pressure doesn't get there right away. And I think that those two guys specifically have really elevated their play over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think they've come together. I think they really rallied, and I think it speaks honestly too as well to Coach Terry Smith, right? Because that's his unit. Now he's the head guy in charge. I think that has a little extra oomph for those guys, right? Like we're doing this for our head coach now, and then I just think they're just really starting to hopefully it looks like at least communicate, right? When you communicate and you're on the same page communication wise, and you're just not being a good athlete out there, it shows up in the way you're always in the position to make the play, right? I think a lot of times earlier in the season, we weren't in the position to even make the play. So now you're in the position now, so it's just about making the play. And that's when you turn into now I'm in position. Now we've got all of these athletes, and that's when their talent can show. They're already in position now, they're flying around, and you're like, wow, that's okay. This is the athlete that they were talking about. But you got to be in position to make those plays. And I think they're growing in that aspect and getting the confidence.
And I think that would give the offense a little bit more confidence to play the way that they did today, where they can play the clock control game in a bigger game next week against Nebraska, not have to worry about throwing it 30 times. They can just, let Grunk be a game manager. Hey, if it's 3rd and 4, get us 5. 1st and 2nd down, if we can run the ball with Katron and Nick Singleton to get us some yards, then that's what we'll do. But, just be a point guard, get us, the yardage that we need on money downs and money plays. And I think that this is going to be the strategy that we see over the next 2 weeks offensively, where it's lean on the run game, get, hopefully at least a splash play or just the yards that you need when you need them from Grunk. Don't ask him to do too much, and you can be pretty successful.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all, right? Because it's a proven thing that our defense is going to be solid. I think as far as all right, I think they found their groove. Running backs, we had no questions. It's just now that we're starting to actually see it. So I think continuing to build on that is the identity that we were going to be all year when we were number 2 anyway. We were never going to be, oh, y'all are number 2 because we're slinging the ball all over the place. That wasn't us. We were going to be number 2 because our running backs were grinding. We would get a splash play or 2. Defense is going to be suffocating. Crowd's going to be crazy at home, and that's what we do. So I think that would be the ideal game plan that we were looking for before anyway, and now we're just being able to execute it.
Yeah. Did you ever have a season where, obviously it's different when you were playing because you still had the BCS and whatnot. But, if you were, mathematically more than likely out of a national championship picture, how did that change the mindset of the players, if at all, going out on Saturday?
Vividly, I feel like remember my senior year losing to Iowa, and that literally was like, because I think that made us a one-loss team, but a one-loss team against a Florida one-loss team, which is like
right.
They left Florida. All right, they're gonna go with Florida. So I vividly remember the guys.
Was that when Tebow was still there?
I believe so. Yeah.
That explains a lot.
I believe that was it. But it was they were gonna get the one loss vote for it. And then, so I mean, that did change, right? Like now we're not playing for a national championship. However, it was like, all right, we can still play a very good team, and I think it still came down just to pride, right? Like, all right, we've lost this one game, hated that. I don't care about losing any other games. I want to win. I don't care who we play. It's still going to be somebody good. Obviously, hated that it can't be the national championship, but that doesn't take away from every time we lined up on the field, we wanted to win. And I think these guys are competitors too, right? And I heard them talk about it on the broadcast today, which is, true of like, hey, every time you go out there, you want to put good film out there, even if it's personally, you want to win for the guys that you went through winter workouts with and sweated to death and all of this stuff. And then you just want to win. I'm on TV in front of people. I don't want to lose. So I think, that you kick into that pride of like, yeah, that's unfortunate it can't be the national championship, but that doesn't mean I'm not about to go out here and ball. So I think hopefully those guys keep that mindset and, can finish strong.
And I think also for, certain guys like Denny Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, there is that aspect to it, but also like the independent contractor part of it where it's like, I want to get drafted as high as possible too. So like, I'm not just going to go out here and lay down, like there's still a lot for me to play for individually, but also for my teammates and for the underclassmen who aren't going to go to the draft, a lot of it too being, all right, what can I show to show that, all right, going forward, I can be an impact player, whether it's on this team, if, this spot's still here whenever the next staff comes, or if I hit the portal, somebody else who will want to bring me in. Like there's plenty to still play for in these last 2 weeks, even if it doesn't end with a college football playoff berth or, a huge bowl game.
Oh yeah, every guy that's not playing is like, this is why I should be playing. This is your time. You go out there and you make some catches. That is literally what you do when you haven't been playing all year and you get a chance to go out and play and you go make plays. I told y'all I should have been playing all year. And then to your point, you put that on film for the next staff here, or in this day and age, right? If you hit the portal, but you still got to be able to put it out there and show the type of player that you are, show your resilience. And to your point, like if you go down there and lay down and just be like, oh, because I wasn't playing, so I didn't. They don't care about that. They want to know every time you line up, do you play ball? And hopefully, right, you hear all these people talk about, oh, we want dogs. Like that's what like, bro. Every time we out there, we playing ball. I don't care about the situation where we at. We playing ball. We playing ball. That's what the dog does. So I think, and those guys, I hear, pride themselves on, hey, I want to be a dog out there. So like that's what it is. Like you can put me in any situation, wherever, however, you can get this smoke.
I love it. And again, State of State, a Penn State football podcast. We are brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Penn State next week hosting Nebraska. I'm pulling up the odds right now to see if there's any early odds out just on the game in general. Might take me a minute to get through that just because there's a billion games every week. But I believe that they were on FanDuel 5.5-point favorites in this game. So not only do they win, but they covered pretty handedly there as well. And again, next week in Nebraska, a must win, as is the last game of the year against Rutgers to try to get to bowl eligible, something that, this hasn't been a thing for Penn State fans having to worry about being bowl eligible for quite some time. So yeah, a little bit of a different feeling in terms of watching these games in November, thinking, all right, maybe contending for a Big Ten championship, trying to get to a Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, whatever it may be. And now it's just like, hey, any bowl for these guys at this point, but they got to win these last two games. What else? You played in a good handful of bowl games. You had the Orange Bowl game.
Orange Bowl,
were you
Alamo Bowl?
Rose
Bowl.
Was that against Tennessee? The Alamo Bowl.
Alamo Bowl was Texas A&M. Outback was against Tennessee.
Outback was Tennessee. Okay, gotcha. In terms of those ones, is there like a certain ranking to those that you would look, okay, Outback, Alamo, or is it just like in the same tier of those, like below like Rose, Cotton, Orange?
I think everything outside of just kind of like you said, the top ones, right? That like the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl that I played in. I think everything else, kind of that second tier that I was in, I think is still the excitement of playing against teams that you usually don't get a chance to play, right? Like we played Tennessee, we played Texas A&M. Those are teams I never played at any other point in time, but I watched them, right? You will watch other college teams and you've seen them, and it's kind of like, I wonder how good they really are, right? But we don't really play them, so it'll be interesting. So it was like your first opportunity, right? And then obviously back then too, it was still the whole, SEC is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Big Ten is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So it's like one of the things I remember us in the whiteout room took it to like, yo, let's go out there and run around. Let's get some routes. I can't see. I don't know how many passing yards we have, but I definitely know I had some big plays. I know Jordan made some plays, I'm sure. But it was just like we took that upon us to be like, let's show them, like, they think just because we're at Penn State, everybody runs a 4.6 out here or something. So like, I think it goes back to a pride thing, and there's an excitement about playing teams that you haven't played before, that you see on TV, that you hear so much about, and you're like, okay, let's show them, type of deal.
Remember chat here. Diana says, so happy for Lions and Coach Smith. Yeah, that was cool to see the Gatorade bath. He took like most of that to the face, by the way. Did you see that? Like half the purple stuff was just...
I did, man. I mean, that's one of those things again where there's certain things that you see where you can tell how the team feels about him, right?
Yeah.
Like they lifted him up, right? And I mean, obviously, right, you're outside of the program. You're like, bro, y'all are lifting him up like this is a championship. However, like the significance of that is that they understand what he's went through. That team understands what they've gone through, and they're just really clearly proud of him. Because right, he could have won and everybody's just happy, but like the fact that they went out their way that much shows you how much they love Coach Terry and what he means to them. I mean, I think that's one of the things that you really need as a coach, is to be able to connect with your players and have them play for you and play for each other.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we will see if Penn State can continue this win next week against Nebraska and keep the bowl eligibility dream alive. Tom will be back next week along with Deon. Brother, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you. Everybody listening, watching, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Comment if you're listening as a podcast. Comment, review, do all that fun stuff. Bump us up the charts, and we will see you next week after Penn State, Nebraska, and before then to get you all set up for the game in Happy Valley. So until then, take care.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.